What's up, everyone? This is the Late Night Talk podcast. I am your host, Ernest Music, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Late Night Talk podcast, where we discuss a range of topics such as faith, music, current events, life. Always remember, there's no topic that we cover here at the LNT Pod that's off limits. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode, and looking forward to just coming into wherever you are listening to this podcast, just being a voice of hope, a voice of encouragement, no matter what you're going through. Pray that this podcast will bless you in every way, shape, form, or matter. Make sure you click like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and let everybody know that Ernest Music finally has a podcast. And today, just want to be honest with you all. I just want to share from the heart. This is one of the topics that I believe that we all face. Um, and we all learn to walk through it, and we all learn to get through it. And just to be honest with you, just to share from my heart, and just want to be honest with you today. Life is hard. Life is hard. We deal with so many things on a daily basis. We have so much that bombards our mind on a daily basis, and we have these plans and certain things that we plan out for our lives, but can I be honest? Sometimes it just doesn't work out the way that we want it to. I remember growing up, I had this certain vision about how my life would be once I grew up, and where I would be, how much I would make, the type of car that I would drive, the type of house I would live in, the type of spouse that I would marry, and so forth. And what I've learned is that life sometimes, for some of us, it just doesn't work out that way. Here recently, I found a letter that I wrote at I believe it was the end of my senior year. It's probably the last day, and one of our teachers had all of the students write out um, a list, and on one side you had your short-term goals, and then on the other side you had your long-term goals. And here recently, I found that list, just cleaning out some things in my storage, and I looked at it and I was like, man, there was probably just two things that was on there that I accomplished, but the rest is like it didn't necessarily pan out the way that I wanted. Um, and the reason being is because we face a lot of uncertainty while we're here on this earth. A lot of obstacles and challenges arises in our lives. A lot of setbacks, and sometimes a lot of failures. And sometimes we don't really understand why we face the things that we face. But we learn to get through them. We learn to overcome those obstacles and those setbacks that we face in life. And speaking of the list, just going back to the list, um, again, just being honest with you all, um, the Lord definitely was not on that list. Me surrendering my life to the Lord was definitely not on the list. And just a quick testimony from me. I grew up in a relatively, you know, somewhat of a Christian household. Um, Jesus was talked about, but the relationship aspect wasn't expounded on. And so to me, Jesus was just a person just like everyone else. Um, and it was around about the age of 14, 15 that I completely abandoned all forms of religion. I thought it was just crazy, to believe in someone you can't see, can't touch, can't, really have a genuine conversation with without the conversation being back and forth. And so, about the age of 15, I completely walked away from it, and I wanted nothing to do with the faith, and I wanted nothing to do with anything of that sorts. And so, as I began to, grow older and everything, and my heart kind of got, it really, really just got hard over the years. And people would try to, talk about the faith with me, but I would just shun them. I pretty much told them I didn't want anything to do with that. It was just a waste of time, and I didn't want anything, to do with it. And so it wasn't until about June 23rd of 2013 that I had an encounter with the Lord. Now, most people, they have an encounter with the Lord in a church or whatever the case may be, but mine was very specific. It was in an apartment complex. I was coming home one day, and there were some Christians that were evangelizing in the apartment complex where me and my girlfriend at the time, um, we were coming home, and they were evangelizing. And I remember that we had a plan of just getting out the car and running in so that they wouldn't see us. And so, how fate would have it, we got out the car, and as soon as we got out, it's my eyes locked with what I now know as the pastor. Um, as soon as our eyes locked, it's like my legs just locked up. I couldn't really move anywhere. It's kind of like my body just froze, and up until that point, when that transpired, I was going through a lot. I was dealing with a lot in life. Um, so I kind of look back on that now and say, okay, maybe that's the reason why I just kind of locked up. But anyway, so yeah, my body just locked up, and he walked over to me and said, "Hey, such and such from this church, and just wanted to know if there's anything that I can pray with you about." And so he began to just talk with me and everything, and all of a sudden, I just began to weep and cry and said, "You know what? There is some things that you can pray with me about." And see, up until that point in time, just as I mentioned before, I was dealing with a lot in life. I was dealing with the loss of several different family members that were near and dear to my heart. I was just dealing with a lot. And so, um, I just had a moment where I was just like, you know what, I am. I'm dealing with a lot. And so he prayed with me, and prayed with my girlfriend, who is now my lovely wife of 10 years. Um, Once he got done praying with us, he asked if we wanted to accept Jesus into our heart. And we both said yes. And, ever since June 23rd of 2013, we have been walking with the Lord. So I'm very grateful for that. Now, as my relationship with the Lord progressed, I had this mindset of all of my problems would just be washed away, and everything that I've dealt with up until that point would just be wiped away. Now, in some people's cases, it's like that, but in most of ours, it's not really that way. And I've learned one thing with the Lord is that He walks with us in every season of our lives. And He walks with us in the good and the bad. And that's one of the things that I've realized. And so as I mentioned before, I had this mindset of that, hey, everything is just going to be wiped away. Everything is just going to be good. But that just wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. And so over the years, um, even with the setbacks and failures, um, God is still faithful. And so I want to encourage you all out there today that no matter what you're facing, no matter what you're going through, that you will overcome. Even those obstacles that you face in life, you will overcome. And so just have faith and have hope in that. Know that God is with you every step of the way. I look back over my life, I look back over a lot of things, and, certain things just didn't pan out the way that I wanted them to. You know, they just didn't turn out the way. I remember, as I mentioned earlier, I had a vision of my life, you know, but to me, and this is just to me, it seemed like there's been setback after setback after setback after setback, you know? And so, one of the things that I've learned and throughout scripture is there's a word for everything that we're going through. I'm reminded of Proverbs 16:9, where it says, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation, it says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. We can make our plans, but it's the Lord that determines our steps. And you see, whether you're a Christian or not, God has a plan for each and every human being on this planet. Though it may not seem that way, though it may not feel that way, He has a purpose and a plan for us. And so I look back on that. I look back on the plans and stuff that I have for my life. And even though it didn't transpire the way that I wanted it to, God has had a better plan for my life. And I didn't see that back then until recently, to be honest with you all. Because like I said, one of the things about this podcast is I'm going to be open and honest with you all. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything because I wouldn't want anyone to do that with me. So I just didn't understand it at that point in my life where I was like, okay, why didn't this transpire? Why didn't this relationship transpire? Why didn't this business open up? Why didn't this door open up? Why did it have to close? But looking back on it, I'm glad that those things didn't transpire. I'm glad that those things didn't pan out the way that I wanted them to. And maybe that's the case for you. Maybe you can look back on your life and maybe you can look back and say, you know what? I'm grateful that those things that I thought would be best for my life didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. And so we can look back on it and say, you know what, Lord, thank you. Thank you that those doors were closed. Thank you that those relationships were not formed. Thank you that business transaction didn't go through. Because it again, we only see one way, but God sees bigger, better, and brighter than what we see. And He loves us. And He has our best interests at hand. Even though it may not seem like it at sometimes, to be honest with you, just being honest with you, it sometimes for me it doesn't seem that way. But looking back on it, I'm like, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, I'm reminded in John 16:33, Jesus told us, He said, even though you face these trials and tribulations here on this earth, to be of good cheer because I've overcome them all. And again, sometimes we don't understand why we face the things that we face in life, but I want to inform you all that there's purpose for our pain. There's purpose for our setbacks. There's purpose for what seems to be a failure. There's purpose for all of that. And one of the things that we have to realize is that in the end, everything is going to work itself out. And that doesn't mean that we just sit back and be complacent. No. You get up and you do what you do best. You invest in yourself. You invest in your talent, your skills. And you utilize those skills and those talents to further advance yourself in life. Um, you allow God to utilize you in a way. You open yourself up. And maybe you don't, have a relationship with the Lord, or maybe you're not a Christian. Maybe you're a person that's listening to this podcast and you're not a Christian. Let me tell you, the best thing that you can do in life is really research and look into it and know that the living God has a plan for you. And trust me, this is coming from a person who wanted nothing at all. As I mentioned before on that list, God was not in my plans, serving Him or any of that. I wanted, and again, I'm telling you all, I wanted nothing to do with Him, but He wanted everything to do with me. Even in those moments where I was like, I wanted nothing to do with you. I don't want anything to do with your word. To be honest with you, I thought it was boring, having to go to church because, I respected my parents and their household and, I just wanted to be obedient. And so I went, but I was thinking about other things while I was in the church. I was thinking about, hey, maybe can't wait to get out and, go party and club and everything. And so, um, again, God was not on my mind at all, but I was on His mind. And that's what's so beautiful about the faith, man, is that we can be as far away from Him as possible, but He's always right there when we turn back around with His arms open wide, ready to embrace us, ready to love on us and give us a better hope. Now, one of the things I'm going to tell you, because a lot of times these churches out here, they present a false gospel and they tell you that, hey, once you give your life to Christ, that everything's going to be okay. Sometimes it's not that way. Sometimes it gets a little worse before it gets better. But in the end, it's worth it. It's worth surrendering everything to Him. It's worth saying, you know what? Here I am. Use me as you please. So I want to close with this. Yes, life may be hard. But you know what? Life can be easy. All we have to do is have hope and know that no matter what you're going through in life, no matter what you're facing, no matter what's transpiring in your life, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. You're going to be just fine. I want to leave you with this. Isaiah 26:3 says that you will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. So trust, hope. Know that those setbacks, failures, shortcomings, mistakes, everything that you've endured up until this point, there's a purpose for our pain. Yes, life may be hard. Yes, life may crumble right in front of your face. Yes, you may be on your last limb. Yes, you may be going through all these things. But remember, you are an overcomer. You are more than a conqueror. And you're going to make it. You're going to be just fine in life. Those setbacks, it's a learning lesson. It's a learning lesson to move forward in life. It's a learning lesson to say, you know what? I'm not going to stay at the same place that I am. I'm going to move forward. Yes, that relationship didn't work out. Yes, that transaction didn't work out. Yes, somebody may have turned their back on you. Yes, you may have endured some things out here in this world, but you know what? You're going to be just fine. So again, life is hard, but you know what? Life can be easy. So just have faith today. I want to thank y'all again so much for tuning in to this very first episode. And hey, if you know someone out there who's dealing with life, with certain trials and tribulations here on this earth. Share it with them. Let everyone know again that the Late Night Talk podcast has arrived. So again, I am Ernest Music, signing off. Until next time, peace.